Fanalysis combines the in-depth data used in fantasy football with the latest betting trends to find out exactly where the sharp money is landing. So we are now joined by the lead betting analyst from Pickswise, Jared Smith, and we're talking about the Jets. Jets, tough week one, now trying to get a little bit of a bounce back in Cleveland. They're getting 6.5 points in Cleveland this week. This line opened at 4.5. Did the odds makers just misvalue this to start the week? Because nothing's really changed this week.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see the effects, the long-term effects of where the Jets offense is. And, you know, you're seeing this total get shaved down a little bit too. And when you really look into some of the matchups in this game, let's start on the Cleveland side of the ball. Cleveland's offense is a negative, net negative, I would say, especially without Deshaun Watson. So there's some issues there offensively. And listen, the Jets defense held up pretty well against the Ravens. I mean, there was a couple of, back end mistakes that led to some big plays. But throughout the course of the game, over the long haul, the Jets, especially their rush defense, held up very well, averaging just 3 yards per carry against. So you have the Browns offense, which is a little bit disjointed in their current state against the good Jets defense. And then really the other side of the ball is the part of this handicap that should be just a one-way street. The Jets offense, I don't see how their offensive line especially gets any movement against the Browns defense with Clowney and Garrett that graded out the top pass rush unit of any team in the NFL in week one. So that's going to be a struggle. You got George Fant on one side. He graded out okay against the Ravens. You got the rookie fourth rounder, Max Mitchell, on the right side at tackle. He was a disaster. You've got Laken Tomlinson at right guard. He didn't grade out well on the pass or the run against Baltimore. And like I said, Baltimore, take nothing away, ton of starch with that defensive unit. But I think the Browns are better up front. So it's going to be a more difficult challenge for Joe Flacco, who, by the way, is pushing 40, now has to recover from a tough week, getting knocked around in the backfield. And there aren't a lot of good vibes on offense for either team, but I think there's a little bit more to go with for the Browns in this spot. So I'm going to push back a little bit on that because there's got to be a regression to the mean. You know that the Jets threw the ball 59 times. Mike LaFleur, Joe Flacco, Robert Saleh have all said that cannot happen this next week. And in week one, they actually averaged more than 4.7 yards per carry. They just didn't run the ball nearly enough. And then again, when you break down Joe Flacco's success rate when he had a clean pocket, his passer rating with a clean pocket was actually top 5 in the NFL in week one. Problem is he didn't have a clean pocket. Problem is he had more hurries and more pressures than any quarterback faced in the NFL. And that was against a Ravens team. Now you're seeing a Browns team that's going to be bringing even more pressure. So you'd have to feel like the Jets are going to try to keep the ball on the ground. If you're telling yourself a story of how this game's going to play out, you got to feel like they're going to hand the ball off 25, 30 times. I would think that, but then again, I just don't see a ton of movement with their interior of the offensive line either. And you mentioned when Joe has a clean pocket, like I don't see him having that a lot. Now, the short passing game might become a factor. And I think the thing that the Jets can hang their hat on, and it's something that Robert Saleh has hung his hat on for years, is I think the defense is going to be the strength of this team. They have some players up front. Quentin Williams looked great. They've got a great linebacker, great linebacking core, and I think Sauce Gardner in the back with that secondary unit. Again, they gave up some big plays, but for the most part, they kept the Ravens in manageable down and distances. They weren't second and third and short. 3 yards per carry is a very good number for that Jets defensive front. I really struggle with this offensive line, and I really struggle to see how they are going to allow Joe Flacco to execute the game plan because, like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I fear that the Jets will be punched in the mouth multiple times in this game by that Browns defensive line.
Speaking of getting punched in the mouth here, I just want you to know, when you bet against the Jets, you know where those receipts go. Directly to Coach Robert Saleh, right on his desk. So,
it was a winning receipt this week. You could tell Robert that he can pay my salary this week for CBS 2 based on the winning ticket of the Ravens.
Those receipts are being faxed directly to Florham Park. The Giants are favored by 1.5 over Carolina. Look, the Giants had a big upset this last week. The bettors are really hitting them hard after this one. 72% of the money is on Big Blue. How do you see this one then?
So this is one of those look-ahead lines that I find fascinating. So let's rewind to last week before both of these teams played their games. You see a pick'em basically between the Giants and the Panthers, which is telling me that the Panthers probably would be a favorite on a neutral field, probably deserve to be a favorite on a neutral field, maybe because of the unknowns with the Giants. But then we flash forward and we watch that game play out. Listen, things weren't going well for the Giants. They were down 2 scores. Daniel Jones threw a red zone interception, and then he kind of pulled one of those rabbits out of his hat. All the credit to Saquon Barkley, who looks to be reinvigorated. But when I dived deep into that game, I didn't see a ton that I liked about the Giants defense. In fact, Ryan Tannehill, without A.J. Brown, without Julio Jones, and with a Derrick Henry that's got an extra year of tread on his tires, played really well, and the numbers were fantastic. So if Ryan Tannehill, with less weapons and less, pieces at his disposal, are going to pick apart this Giants secondary like he did, I think Baker Mayfield, say what you want, is going to have some opportunities in this game to move the football. So when that line moves, it almost touched that key number of 3. And I just don't know if the Giants team at this stage is ready to be a favorite. I think they're a spunky underdog. They were a fantastic cover last week, win outright if you played the money line. But I still think that's their identity. And when they're going to be favored this year, that's where I see the Giants struggle.
All right, so when you look at the actual in-depth numbers for what this defense has done, the Giants' defense, what's amazing is the Giants dropped, let's see, what was it, 49%, or I should say they had the second highest blitz rate in the NFL this last week at 49%. And Baker Mayfield's stats against the blitz are terrible. His completion percentage drops to 42% against the blitz. And Wink Martindale, who was with the Ravens, knows very well how to play against Baker Mayfield. Do you think that matchup of Wink versus Baker is going to be a key element to this and the pressure that the Giants are hoping to get on Mayfield?
Absolutely. And again, when you look at the drop back success rate that Ryan Tannehill had against this Giants defense, that is a scary, scary number. And I think there is going to be some holes on both sides defensively. I think the Giants offense under Brian Dable looks like they figured something out. And again, I think this Panthers offense, which is going to be very aggressive against the Giants defense that really struggled, I think there's going to be holes there as well. The more we talk, the more I'm interested in the over in this game. But I think this game's a good pass, because I think this is one of those lines that maybe has moved a little bit too much. And while I'm a little bit inclined to buy low on a team like Carolina and sell high on a team like New York, there's enough uncertainty here because of the things that you mentioned to just let me pass on this one politely.
You know what? Sometimes the best play is no play at all. We should always suggest that, you bet responsibly, and sometimes the best way to go is to keep your money in your pocket. That's how he sees the Jets and the Giants games. For a look at his top plays of the week and his teaser, check out our other segment. For Jared Smith and Pickswise, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.